Let's begin the procedure by exploring the root canal space utilizing a stainless steel number 10 hand file. This instrument is gently fed into the canal using a small back and forth motion. When the handle is snug, pull and cut out of the canal. Repeat this motion and work the 10 file passively and progressively until it's a few millimeters short of the estimated working length. The 10 file gives us information regarding the cross-sectional diameter of the canal, if its handle is positioned on or off the long axis of the tooth, which indicates the appropriateness of the access, and the anatomy of the root canal system. Next, we use a number 15 hand file. This instrument follows the pathway previously established by the number 10 hand file. The 15 is used in a similar manner as the 10. Carefully, delicately exploring and slightly expanding the glide path through the coronal 2/3 of the canal. Before using the protapers or any rotary instrument, irrigate with sodium hypochlorite. We'll start the protaper universal sequence by selecting shaping file number 1, which has a purple ring on its handle. The arrow indicates a coronal ledge, which should be removed for better straight line access. To accomplish this, employ a brushing motion with the shaping files. The S1 will passively follow the previously established glide path, moving apically to just short of the depth of the hand files which preceded it. Remove the S1, clean, and inspect the file. Shaping file 2, or S2, is then introduced. This instrument has a white ring on its handle. Work to about the same depth, employing a brushing motion to improve the access. This is accomplished when light resistance is encountered by withdrawing the instrument and cutting the dentin on the outstroke. In more difficult canals, it may require a couple of recapitulations to enlarge the coronal 2/3 of the canal. Irrigate, go back in with a number 10 hand file to break up debris, and then re-irrigate. Once we have finished our pre-enlargement procedures and have great coronal 2/3 access, then we use a pre-curved number 10 hand file to negotiate the rest of the canal and establish patency. A curved number 15 hand file follows to working length. This is also a good time to reconfirm your working length. Often you'll find that your efforts to move the canal orifice can affect your original measurements. When the canal is patent and has a confirmed working length, we then can use shaping file number 1 to length. This instrument will generally move to length easily since we have a smooth, reproducible glide path to the terminus. Always allow protaper universal instruments to progress at their own pace. You should never force any rotary files. Following the use of S1, irrigate, recapitulate, and re-irrigate. Next, the S2 is reintroduced. In this animated example, the S2 instrument goes to full working length on the first pass. Again, take your time. When your working length has been reached, remove the instrument from the canal space. There is no need to spend additional time in the canal. Following its use, irrigate, recapitulate, and re-irrigate. Once the shaping instruments have the coronal 2/3 of the canal optimally prepared, the apical 1/3 can be finished. Finishing file number 1 has a yellow ring on its handle which designates that its tip diameter is equivalent to a 20 file. With the canal flooded with irrigant, carefully take the F1 to the working length. The finishing file's decreasing taper feature comes into play here, concentrating the shaping action in the apical region and minimizing coronal shaping. In this animated example, this is the appropriate size for the apical region. Following the use of the F1, gauge the size of the foramen by simply dropping a 20 hand file to length. If the 20 hand file is snug at the working length, then the canal is optimally prepared and ready to obturate. If the 20 hand file is loose, try a 25.02 tapered hand file. If this is snug just short of the working length, then use the rotary finishing file number 2. This file has a red ring on its handle. This designates that its tip is equivalent to a 25. If the 25 hand file is loose at length, gauge the foramen with the 30 hand file. If this is snug just short of working length, you can use finishing file number 3 to create your final apical shape. The F3 has a blue ring on its handle. After working this instrument to working length, gauge with the 30 hand file. If it is loose, move to a 4002 tapered hand file for gauging. Again, feel for constricture at the apex. If it is snug short of the working length, use finishing file number 4. If the 40 hand file was loose, the next step up will be to try a 50 hand file. If this one binds near the apex, then ProTaper finishing file number 5 is called for. When taking larger instruments to the apex, be careful to fully understand and appreciate the potential for deep curvature within the canal space being instrumented. Every canal space must be judged individually as to its appropriate final apical size. Filling the canal space with the ProTaper universal obturators is accomplished in a few simple steps. Following instrumentation, irrigate the canal space to remove any remaining debris. Be certain that the canal space has been thoroughly dried. Choose a ProTaper universal size verifier which corresponds to the last size ProTaper finishing file which was taken to length. Set the rubber stopper on the verifier to the proper length. Insert the size verifier into the canal space. It should fit passively at length. In this animated example, the fit is appropriately passive. Should the fit not be passive, a smaller size verifier can be chosen and tested for an appropriate fit. The other option is to use the original size verifier and gently adjust the apical shape. If the size verifier is used in a filing motion, the canal should be re-rinsed and re-dried. When using BioPure MTAD as an antibacterial final rinse, it should be used according to its directions after all instrumentation and hand filing is complete. Upon confirmation of the apical size with an appropriate size verifier, a matching obturator is chosen. To maintain good length control, always set the rubber stopper using the calibration marks on the obturator. The obturator is heated in the ProTaper universal oven at the appropriate settings based on the size of the obturator to be used. During the heating process, sealer can be placed in the canal space. Use a ProTaper paper point to apply a thin coating of Thermoseal Plus to the canal walls. The sealer, in addition to filling minute canal irregularities, acts as a lubricant for the obturator. When signaled by the oven that the obturator is at the appropriate temperature, it is carefully removed from the oven by the handle and immediately placed in the canal space. The placement motion should always be smooth and should not require any serious force. With the carrier at length, stabilize the handle and use a preppy burr or other high-speed burr to sever the carrier at the orifice level. With the ProTaper universal system, as with any instrument system, a good outcome begins with good access. We've edited the procedure to focus on just the key points of the technique. In this clinical example,